On September 30, 2021, I scaled Tambourine Mountain by stormy night to recite this poem in a lamplit shed for Calanthe Collective, lightning flashing across the makeshift skylight above me while rain plays staccato on tin. I begin by saying the first time I ever perform a poem is for Small Room Writers Collective on October 2, 2012, nearly 9 years ago to the day. When anniversaries approach, I feel the first, second, and sweep hands of my life aligning on the clock ticking down, then freezing in place. Days exactly years apart lined up, collapsing calendar grids, paper accordion flattened. The set theme for my first small room is futures. I read a piece about how one day we would all become trees, who look to me like bodies buried upside down, heads hidden underground, limbs frozen in an inverted game of musical statues. I'm inspired by a poem my brother Rowan writes when he's 15. 10 days after Small Room, I'm in Scottsdale, Tasmania, kissing my grandmother's forehead one last time. Rowan is standing in the doorway, beckoning me. In Grandma's eulogy, for only the second time in my life in as many weeks, reading before a crowd of such sights and silence, I say our family is surrounded by laughter and flowers because of her. For decades, she is planting a sprawling garden her grandchildren grow up in, a shelter. When I write the eulogy, I must keep correcting the tense from present to past. Days before the funeral, when Mum goes to inspect the gravesite, she finds it overrun with rhododendrons, Grandma's favourite flower. Whenever we pass the garden after it is no longer hers or ours, Rowan turns his face away, stares instead towards the horizon hanging over the hairpin roads banked by razor-ribboned fields of opium poppies heaving wind-blown into the middle distance. In 2014, I write a piece about a ginkgo tree house hidden deep among the strangler figs, piccabeam palms, wild limes, and wait-a-while vines of Tambourine Mountain. A boy trapped in grief is filling the treehouse with 1,440 ticking clocks, enough to denote every moment of one day down to the minute. His sister wants to save him, to make him stop killing time, dreams of him swinging like a pendulum, her poor darling bird. In 2020, when tattoos cover my past and its long shadows, ginkgo leaves and rhododendrons turn my arm into a garden path. Skin once misled into scars, now brought back into bloom by osmosis of ink. In 2019, I sit 3 rows from the front while Nick Cave paces the stage. Shirt sleeves riding up, wrists flashing in the fierce light, while he tells us that the older he gets, the more he feels as though his childhood is not in the past, but in the future. Some childhoods echo into a constant tin can on a string of now, with no receiver, no future. By fresh-turned soil, we are the broken gardeners rue when they love trees that never grew. In 2019, Rowan is lying in bed, sweating through the sheets, looking through the window of a hospital close to Grandma's old garden, visions flickering in the corners of his eyes no matter how many times he tries to turn away. His childhood quavers vaporous in the middle distance like heat waves peeling off the hairpin roads, winding between vast opium poppy fields. Our sister is there, a child again, climbing under the razor wire to gather bouquets in her trembling arms, carrying them back to Grandma's, arranging them in vases. In 2020, Rowan finds starling fledglings in his garden during lockdown. He tries to save him, but he can't. I long to line his nest with something softer. Over the Bass Strait, over the phone line, I tell him more than half their fledglings don't make it past that tender state. Don't blame yourself. Did you know that in 1949, a vast commemoration of starlings is roosting on Big Ben's hands, stopping them in place, stopping time? Can we inhabit poetry? Ache an artifice redeemed by art, if only. Take memories and make them sing. Make them present tense by osmosis of ink, keeping time in reverse, incanting into an echoing room on tambourine, on wongalpong, so named for how sound spirals in backward loops and spools around the mountain. As children, before our father up and vanishes like the wind-blown leaves, we tiptoe on eggshells. Don't let the birds eat the breadcrumbs. We will go hand in hand through this old-growth forest and replace each breadcrumb with a stone. But we will be led inwards, away. We will come home. We will meet in the center of this deathless place I conjure, and lie down among the wild limes and wait-a-while vines, sinking into the forest floor, and look up through the outstretched branches towards the birds who fly overhead, still carrying the weight of our childhood in their bones.